Just hit the dance floor. Don't work too hard.
Hey, welcome back to Retired Chaos. If you're watching the video version of this, I am in my childhood home, aka my parents' house. Behind me, you see these paintings. My mom painted them. She is incredibly talented. This is my favorite seat in the house. I love this living room. It's just big and nice, and it gives me Mexico vibes. I love it. I decided to have a night to myself today. My parents went out to hang out with their friends, and they invited me. And I have not been alone, like actually alone, for like a month and a half with like the move and Thanksgiving and being in Pittsburgh and then coming to Dallas and hanging out with my sister. So my parents were like, do you want to come hang? And I was like, no, absolutely not. I want to order dinner, grab a glass of wine, and hang out with my friends. So that's what I'm doing, hanging out with my internet friends. I am excited for this episode. I am a little scared for this episode. I thought that I would come on here and share my testimony, my story, and this really became a little bit of an inspiration from feedback that I got from people being like, love your content. Who are you? You know, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So that is exactly why I am making this episode today. I'm sure if you're coming across my podcast or my socials, you see that I don't have a ton of digital validation, right? Like I'm not viral. I don't have a ton of followers, a nobody, if you will, in the digital world. And so I'm sure there's a lot of thoughts of like, okay, why would I listen to this girl? Or who the hell is she? Who is she even qualified to give me advice or talk about these topics? And that's valid. That's fair to feel and think. Both of my 2 episodes since launching they've been very quick, straight to the point. And I did that on purpose because my mind tends to glaze over when I listen to a podcast episode that is over an hour long, especially when there is a lot of fluff and like nonsense to it. But I do think that my format doesn't allow people to get to know me, who I am, and why I'm hopping on the mic, my purpose, or my goal. So I thought I'd share my story. The goal for my podcast has always been to impact people through my experiences, what I've learned in my 29 years of life, and in hopes that it leaves you better off than when you first came here. If I can make an impact on one person, one singular person, I feel fulfilled. Like I have done what I came here to do, period. And here's the thing. I've lived a lot of life. I'm 29, and that may not be all that old, but man, oh man, has life chewed me up and spit me back out multiple times. Most of it, okay, I'll be honest, I am a self-aware queen. Most of it is my fault, which we'll talk about as we go through my story, but some of it was completely blindsided, unfair, tough, and honestly sad and shitty to go through. But life is chaotic. It's never perfect. It's rough. I do feel really guilty saying, just given what's going on in the world, I do feel incredibly privileged and grateful to be able to sit here at my parents' house and have a nice meal and not worry about my life and just be able to say, hey, I can pursue this without any fear. So while I do think that life has shitted on me a little bit, I am grateful. Now, I am going to try and add some comedic relief to my story here. You know, like I said, I've definitely gone through some shit, and I'm good now. Looking back, I laugh at myself. I'm like, you silly little bitch. You silly little bitch. However, before I get into it, I will say that the content in this podcast episode contains sensitive and potentially triggering content. So if you are easily triggered, please proceed with caution and feel free to stop listening if you are triggered. Let's go ahead and start here because I think a lot of people are quite surprised when they hear that I'm actually not American. Like, I'm American in the sense of that I've lived here my whole life, but I'm not even a citizen of the US. I was born in Monterrey, Mexico, lived there till I was almost 4 and moved to Dallas, Texas. At the time, my dad had a job in Dallas that helped him get us green cards and residency for my mom, my sister, and I, and himself. And then we moved into a little city in the DFW area. It's not so little anymore, but it was a little city called Irving, Texas. Now we moved into the actual house that I am in today when I was 8. And growing up was really, really hard for me. Growing up in America was really, really hard for me because I was raised very much Mexican traditions, only spoke Spanish at my house strictly. Went to Mexico every year to see my family for summers and Christmas. I remember, I don't know if this was the reason why I ended up, like my mom ended up being like only Spanish in the house, but I do remember a core memory of us having a couple friends over and we were making tamales. My mom's gonna be like, mija. But I pronounced tamales and not tamales when I was like speaking Spanish, and my mom was like, mija, tamales. And from then on, it was strictly Spanish. Anyways, my extended family and I are very close. Like, all my cousins and I are born about like 2 years apart each, and we have about like 13 cousins. That might be wrong. I don't have time to count. Going to school here in America was really hard because I was seeing the way that other kids were living, and it was much different to the way that my parents were parenting me. It was really mainly in like middle school when this kind of started, but I was noticing that, kids that seemed to have more freedom than I did. My parents seemed to be like really strict. My dad is a very traditional Mexican man to the T. He is the provider. He can be very hard. I don't know how to describe it. It can come off very cold, although he's not. He's a huge teddy bear. But at the time when I was growing up, it was like, for example, if I was crying due to some sort of conflict or I was getting in trouble and I was running to talk to him, if I was crying, it was one of those things where it was like, you can stop crying and come back and then we can talk. And my mom was always overflowing with love. She still is. She's just this sweet angel from the heavens above. Anybody that you ask that knows my mom is like obsessed with her. So if I did something wrong, she would definitely try to reason or give me the benefit of the doubt. And then you had like my dad that was like a hard ass. So as you can imagine, the parenting styles were a little bit conflicting. I had a very loving home, but my dad was very much tough love. And he was definitely the guy or the parent that I looked up to. AKA, I did think that I developed a little bit of daddy issues, which, by the way, we're good. Me and my dad have an amazing relationship. He's an amazing dad. We're best friends. My mom, too, best friends. But obviously, the development years are super important. Going back to school, I came to really dislike my Mexican heritage. Like, I hated having very curly hair. I hated having dark hair. I didn't like that my mom and dad had an accent and couldn't fluently speak English, which now I am so proud to be Latina and be Hispanic, and I look up to my mom so much and I admire her because she came to America while my dad is going to work every single day, raising us in a foreign place, not knowing a lick of English, got her GED, learned English, and fully like made it. And I'm obsessed with her. She is a freaking queen. But I didn't like it. I didn't like being Mexican. I really wanted to be white. I really wanted to live like the rest of the kids and have the freedom that it seemed like that they had. And the city that I lived in, I mean, we were never like rich by any means. I would say we were like lower middle class. And the area was very similar. And so I think a lot of the kids did have a lot of freedom. Lots of kids started drinking and doing drugs at a very early age. It wasn't till high school where things got a little crazy for me, like specifically freshman year of high school. My sister was a senior in high school and I was a freshman, so I thought I was like the coolest kid. Like I really wanted to grow up faster than I should have. And I wanted this freedom and I became very, very rebellious. I was exposed to drugs at a very early age. Like I would have kids taking muscle relaxers in my classes to the point where they couldn't walk to their next class. My sister and I had very close friends that unfortunately didn't make it out of high school because they passed away from abuse of drugs. Like our district was known for that kind of stuff. And it sucks when you're a kid developing. It truly is such a dangerous place to be because at the time you don't think it sucks. At the time you're curious. You think it's normal if you're seeing that every day. I constantly got in trouble for staying out late, even when I had a curfew. You know, I ended up at the wrong place, wrong time often. I was really not the best to my mom and dad. Like I was just trying to push and push and push to live this life that I saw everybody else living, and my parents were pushing and pushing and pushing to protect me. I knew that's all they wanted to do, but I just like didn't care. The summer of senior year of high school, I pretty much left my house. My parents and I couldn't get along. And I kind of bounced from friends to friends' houses, which by the way, again, these are the friends that were not doing the greatest things. I just thought I was better off. I thought I was better off than being at my parents' house because I just didn't have the freedom that I wanted to. Which I will say, I was the quesadilla queen. Like people would come over to my house for lunchtime. We'd like skip lunch and I would make everybody quesadillas and it was fun. Fast forward, I am graduating high school. I'm going to college. I went to the University of North Texas. Whoop whoop. Freshman year of college was so bad for me. I mean, like here's a kid going off to college, continuously being rebellious with the desire to just finally be free and grow up. I got to the dorms and I'm like, this is what college is for raging, meeting new people, new adventures. I had zero fear of consequences at that point. Within my first semester, I got arrested, kicked out of the dorms, and I lost my scholarship. I had like a partial scholarship, but it was pretty much paying for 75% of my school. A cherry on top, I was losing my scholarship due to the fact that I had D's and F's across the board, a 1.7 GPA, and I had just gone into a relationship with a guy that quickly turned abusive. He had friends. He was in a fraternity. I was like, oh my God, amazing. I'm fucking peaking. Not peaking at all. Let's just be very clear there. But also at this point in my life, I had one of my very dearest friends pass away from fentanyl. Just really falling victim to the chaos in our hometown. He was a senior in high school. And I was devastated. I was lost. I didn't know where to begin and I needed to cope. I needed help and I didn't know how to help myself. I didn't know how to ask for help. I didn't believe that I needed help. So here I am going into my sophomore year of college, a shit GPA, coping with grief in a relationship that's abusive and on probation. Here's a silver lining. And this is why I think health and wellness and mental health has just become so important to me is that I picked up my love for working out during this time. I developed a real serious discipline for working out. I loved it. I think it truly saved me. I was obsessed. I watched my body change. I watched my focus change, like my energy. And I got to the point where I was like, I would be willing to give up drinking and other things to keep me going on this path. I actually met two of my very best friends because of working out, Danny and my friend Mickey, which are still my very best friends to this day. And I got introduced to the rest of my friend group through Danny, which we'll talk about in just a second. But still in a shit relationship. Basically, as you can tell, a theme here is that I was very, very selfish. So I didn't really help myself when it came to that relationship. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. I think that, like the whole topic of toxic relationships deserves like its own episode, but that lingered for so long. If anyone has ever been in a toxic relationship, it's very difficult to get out of. It's very difficult. It's very scary. It's hard, period. However, I got out of it, even though he did steal my TV. Okay. So I was living with this girl, and then after I lived with her, I moved in by myself in like this cute little house. And I never locked the door, which was like super dumb. But me and this guy were done. But again, he was batshit. And one day I come home from class and my TV is gone. I'm like, where the fuck? Actually, I know exactly where my TV went. And I go to the fraternity house because he lived there at the time. And I knocked on the door. And if you can just imagine, like, all these fraternity guys surrounding me and me being like, give me my TV back. I know you have it, and him being like, no, I don't. No, I don't. Meaning, like, there's no other person that would have my TV but you. And long story short, we negotiated. I paid him $20 for my TV. That's another fucking stupid story. Fast forward to my junior year of college. I'm turning 21. I am now training to be in a bikini competition. At the time, those were like popular and I really wanted to do it. Got away from this guy, yada, yada, yada. Started getting new friends. Great. Like life was going up. I was redoing my classes, all my basics. I was like, dang, I'm going from a DF to like a B minus, B plus. Let's go. I am about to turn 21. Finally, it becomes my birthday. We go out. I drink like 9 margaritas in a margarita drinking competition. And me and a couple of friends decide that we're going to go longboarding at like 2 a.m. in the morning. Yep, you guessed it. It did not end up that great. I tore my ACL and my MCL. I don't remember it, but I do vividly remember Danny picking me up, taking me back to her house, and like my entire friend group surrounding me while I was like bawling my eyes out. I do remember that. And then the rest, it's a blur. But think about it. Like, I just found my love for working out. I found like finally like a coping mechanism that is relatively healthy. And it was taken away from me fully for the next 7-8 months. I was still living alone at the time. And I spent a lot of time by myself, eating, drinking, laying, not even being able to do physical activity. So I basically went back to my old ways. I gained like 25 pounds. I was pretty depressed. And Danny, again, a huge blessing in my life. She convinced me to move in with 6 other girls in a huge house after my lease ended. And I did. And it was the best decision that I made in my life. This group of women was the reason that like I really started to turn around my life. Because I never realized what community could do for you until I was in it and I was experiencing it. We just so happened to like form this incredible friend group and support system. They showed me what real friends look like. They showed me what real unconditional friendships look like. They showed me that emotions are okay, that asking for help was okay. And it was incredible. So my junior year, I'm on the up and up. I get into my senior year and I only lived there for a year and I finally get to live out my dream. My sister at the time was doing her master's at UNT and we ended up being super fortunate to live together. So I was able to be my sister's roommate, which it's totally completely different when you're living at home and you're like, oh, I'm the little sister and we're just like fighting and being stupid. And then now we're like grown up and we're in college and living together. And my sister's incredible. So after that, at this point, I am dating somebody else. That relationship was very rocky, back and forth, like breakup, makeup, whatever. I finally graduate and I get a job, which by the way, I did get my GPA up from a 1.7 to like a 3.8. I redid classes and I added a minor in communications and then I added a concentration in professional sales. And that is what I do now. So I get a job right out of college. Everything is going great. I took a victory lap for college. I'm working my job and like working on graduating as well. And I was successful there. I moved up and I was there for 2.5 years, and it was fun because they sent me to a lot of places. Like I traveled a ton times because I could speak Spanish. So they sent me to like Argentina, for example, and I would like come back, and I remember, having officers at the airport like ask me questions about my previous situation that had happened to me, but I had fully done like probation. I had fully sealed it off my record. So I was like, oh, maybe this is just kind of like, protocol, if you will. So I'm doing that job. Everything's good. We're still going to Mexico every year. My grandma gets super sick, where I knew like I'm going to Christmas and this is going to be the last Christmas with my grandma. I felt it in my gut. She basically told me when we were talking over coffee at the kitchen table, I remember this very, very vividly, she was done. So I knew that I could not miss that Christmas, even though my job was asking me to come back for the end of the year and finish and close everything out for the end of the year. So my parents drove, I flew. Coming back, I flew back into DFW. And this is where it gets even more chaotic, folks. I get detained at the DFW airport, okay? And the reason why I got detained, yes, even though I got everything sealed off my record, government agencies can still see things, especially when you are not a citizen. So I get detained and I get sent to bumfuck nowhere, Texas. I truly have no idea to this day where the hell I was. And my parents are still in Mexico. They stayed an extra couple of days. So I call my parents. I feel so guilty because they leave immediately. I'm like, wow, they were supposed to stay for a couple of days extra and now they're coming back, and I feel so selfish. Like the common theme here is that I was super selfish the entire time through this. They come back, they come and see me during visiting hours. They put money in my account, which, by the way, I was queen snack in there. Queen snack, okay? I was like, man, where this snack cart comes around, like I'm getting all of it. And I was starting to strategize. I was like, do I have to trade things? Like, what are we doing here? Orange is the new black kind of situation, which it really was. But I was in there with like 50 plus women that like were there for like some pretty extensive shit, like Grand Theft Auto, smuggling other people into America, like with none of them having any papers. It was pretty intense, and I was like, oh, here I am with like this little wrong place, wrong time thing that I got arrested for, which, by the way, if I got arrested for that today in 2023, it would be the equivalent to a speeding ticket. So let's just put that out there. But I was in there for a week, and I finally got out. I called one of my friends that was like into politics. And I'm like, yo, what can you do for me? He was like, I think I could do something. And then I got out. I don't know if that was the reason why, but I definitely called him, and like an hour later I was out. So that story is a mystery to this day. I get out. I go back to work. Things normal, except for the fact that I can no longer leave the country for the next 6 years, because now I have a case on me. And immigration is basically saying, hey, you are risking, keeping your green card. Like, we need to review this because you did things that you weren't supposed to do, which I had no idea that I couldn't do it. My lawyer never informed me. So I'm like, okay, can't leave the country. And a couple short months later, my grandma passes. Can't go to her funeral. A couple weeks later after that, my grandpa passes from my dad's side. Can't go to that funeral. And I miss, over the course of five and a half years, I miss weddings, I miss holidays, I miss summer vacations with the people that I love the most, the people that that help me stay grounded. When I go to Mexico is a place for me that like brings me back to the ground, and that's important to me. So it really did affect me a lot. But I kept moving on. Life had to keep going, right? So I kept working this job, and I finally was like, I hate this job. I've been here too long. I'm not moving up. I want to do something more interesting in my life. At the time, I'm still dating the guy that I was dating senior year. Still super rocky, but we're in it on and off, right? and I find a job in Chicago that just really called to me. I was like, I have to get out of Texas. I have to specifically get out of Dallas. Side note, if you have grown up, gone to college in the same city that you grew up in, you need to move out of your hometown and really experience something else on your own. So I did that. I found the job, I interviewed, I got hired, and I moved. And like I said, at the time I was dating this guy, and we were dating for a while. So the next step for me, I thought was like, well, I guess we like move in together. Huge mistake. Should never done that, because within the month of like moving in, I was like, I'm out of here, and I'm like moving and leaving states. And I still regret to this day the way that I handled that, because no matter what, like it was never fair to the other person how I handled it. But again, I'm like super selfish at this point. Like I don't know how to be in a healthy relationship or just handle things respectfully and healthy. So I move and we break up. And I'm hanging out in the new city. I'm a city girl now. Like, whoa, change of complete like cultures and just way of life. And I'm there for like 8 months before COVID hits. COVID hits and I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what to do. I don't have my friends here. I don't have my family here. I only have my coworkers. I guess your coworkers are not your friends. I was seeing this guy that I started seeing once I moved over there, just like a kind of like a fun casual thing. But COVID hit and I was in the middle of the city. He was outside of the city and I didn't know what to do. I was like staying there a lot during that time because I couldn't even get my groceries to where I was living. There was a lot of riots at the time, a lot of violence downtown. It was really bad. I mean, I'm sure you guys can remember that time was crazy. So I was trying to protect myself and I didn't want to give up. I felt like if I was going back to Dallas, like I was giving up. And which silver lining is I became really good friends with his roommate, introduced him to one of my best friends, and they're definitely getting married. So matchmaker right here. Call me for any kind of services. That relationship was like, again, I want to like hold this topic for a deeper focused topic, but sometimes people don't know how to love you the way you need to be loved, and that's okay. And you know, that relationship was never supposed to happen. So whatever, it goes south. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I'm like, okay, I do need to go back to Dallas. I need to go back to my family. I move back and I live in Dallas for like 6-7 months. This is where I really started to heal. This is where I really started to focus on like be intentional about putting one foot in front of the other for yourself, for your life, for others, like ground yourself. So that is really where I started to learn how to meditate, learn how to journal, really putting importance into like the food that I'm putting in my body and the correlation that it could potentially have to my moods. Really just learning a lot about myself and deciding like I don't want to be this selfish person anymore. I don't want this kind of stuff to be happening to me. I want to be able to control what I can control. And then I finally, once I feel like I have a grip, I'm like, I still don't want to give up in Chicago. Like, I don't want to say that I failed because of these things. I am moving back. So I did. I found a cute little studio den in like a cute little area. If you guys are familiar with Chicago, it's Wicker Park. That's where I ended up living for the next 3 years after that. 3.5 years. And I was like, no more dating, no more looking for validation in other people, only in myself. And I genuinely believe when you stop fighting yourself and stop fighting your life, things start working out for you. Because soon after that, the love of my life falls into my lap. I met him in Arizona at my best friend's engagement party, and then we really like hit it off at the bachelorette party. It was like a joint thing in Vegas, which again I can do like a separate topic on that if you guys want to know more about that. And he truly is who has been the one to show me unconditional romantic love and what that truly looks like. I now know what love is and love isn't, and again I want to give that top separate attention. But I think what I can say, your biggest investment, at least in my personal opinion, is that your biggest investment that you can make in this life is the partner that you choose. That leads us to where we are now. My story, right? Like now I'm here and I've done a lot of healing. I've done a lot of trauma work. I'm in therapy. the whole purpose of why I'm here and why I decided to, kickstart my podcast again is it's really me taking all my mistakes, my regrets, my wisdom, my life lessons, and really pursue something that I think I was meant to do, which is share and connect with people. And I hope that through this, I can help people not feel alone. Help to remind you that you aren't broken. You're human, and life is meant to have rough edges. That makes you so uniquely you. But at the same time, I hope that I can portray that we're a lot similar than we think we are sometimes. And that's like the beauty of life and the beauty of connection. And I hope that I was able to share enough, but not in like great detail. Because again, I just feel like it deserves its own separate, like I think that I can talk about, toxic relationships and how to get out of them, what love is and what love isn't. Just so many different topics that I can pick up and make their own episodes from my story. But I hope that this kind of gives you an insight of my energy and my goal here. What my intention is every time I sit and press record and hit upload. And I hope that this makes you want to take the journey with me. Now that I have overshared my life, I need to go to bed. I need to finish my wine and go to bed. I made a silly mistake and I agreed to go running at 7 a.m. tomorrow. By the way, today's Friday night and it is 11:16. Is that not like insane behavior? Anyways, if you got this far, I love you. Thank you for supporting me and listening to me because you didn't have to. If you like this content, please leave a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow me on social media. The podcast is at Retired Chaos Podcast on IG and TikTok. And my personal Instagram, I will link it in the show notes. I spell my name out a little funky. But yeah, let me know what you think. DM me, talk shit to me. Like, for real, I am here to actually make connections. And I would love to talk to anybody that wants to talk to me. I hope you all have the best holidays. And I will see you all next week. Bye.
You feel alive, let's hit the dance floor. Don't work too hard, my break a backbone. Return